Hey guys, what is up? Ioki here bringing you the new tier list for the massive patch 12.10. Guys, the biggest change to League of Legends that we have seen possibly in years. This is seriously bigger than like an actual preseason update. It's finally here. So if you guys have been living under a rock and have no idea what's coming at you, it is now on live servers. And this is it, guys. They're calling this the durability update. And there are a lot of systemic changes, and every single champion is being changed. So we've got a lot to dig into, a lot of changes in the meta, and lots of champions that are going up on the tier list, lots of champions that are going down on the tier list. But before we get into that, guys, make sure that you guys are subscribed to the channel. My name is Ioki if it's your first time on the channel. I'm a multi-season high elo player that specializes in the support role. I've got lots and lots of high elo support experience. I've got competitive experience, all that good stuff. So enough about me. Let's get into the changes. So these are the patch notes, guys. The system changes. So across the board, grievous wounds, shields, heals, and vamp. Basically, heals are being nerfed, shields are being nerfed. They want less massive fluctuations in health bars. They want less one-shots. They want less, one person gets picked at 20 minutes into the game and like that's Baron and that's a game. They want longer games, longer team fights, which is going to reward smarter positioning. Assassins are not just going to be one-shotting you without landing a single ability. They want to slow the game down, and I personally think that is one of the best changes they've ever done. I'm really, really excited about this patch. So yeah, every single champion in the game gets 70 health. The health per level also got increased. The armor per level also got increased. The magic resist per level also got increased. Everyone is tankier, guys. So that is going to be, some people might look at those numbers and it's like, oh, 70 health, that's not that big of a deal. But that's 70 health at level 1. And everyone is just like roughly 10% tankier now due to the armor and MR. So let's go into what I think this is going to affect the current meta. I do want to put a little bit of a disclaimer on this. The patch just dropped today, and I'm making this tier list out of the experience of my years of playing the game at a high level, my competitive experience, and I played, a dozen or so games on the patch on the PvE before it dropped. That being said, that's a massive, massive change. No one really knows what the meta is going to skew towards. This is my best estimated guess, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to be roughly accurate. There may be an outlier here or two, but this is going to be the rough meta. So I don't really want to talk about the tier 5 and tier 4 champions. These are basically just like cheese champions. And in fact, if there was a tier 6, I would add them to that because cheese champions, especially on the support role, are going to be worse in general with this new patch. So cheese champions are things that like have to get a kill at like level 1 or 2, or like you're basically just relying on them getting hit by one ability and you one-shotting them. They're not quote unquote real supports. They're just there to cheese and take advantage of the fact that everybody in bot lane's squishy. Well, guess what? Not everybody in bot lane is squishy anymore, so I do think that these champions are going to have a rougher time succeeding, but I don't want to spend too much time on this because we've got a lot of actual champions to discuss in the tier list. So on to tier 3. These champions are average and should only be played if you are skilled with them or used as counter picks. So let's go briefly through why each person is on this part of the tier list. So we've got Leona. Leona honestly has been struggling. I would probably move her somewhere around like mid tier 3 if I'm being honest. I still don't think there's going to be like a lot of reason to play Leona. She's going to be slightly tankier now, which means that she can, pump out 1 or 2 more stuns per team fight. But in general, we've got classes that are much stronger than Leona, and we even have people within her own subclass of hard engaged tank support that are going to be outperforming her, and we'll get to those later. Pyke, this champion is, if he wasn't dead last patch, he is absolutely dead this patch. If you guys didn't know, they absolutely gutted his ultimate, so now he doesn't get your cuts anymore. Or he gets significantly less your cuts. Basically, you're playing Pyke with like 4,000 less gold than they used to. And now the fact that like Pyke's early game, he was a very, very early game and snowball dependent champion. So now he doesn't get that gold to snowball with. And now everybody can tank 1 or 2 more autos at level 1. So you're going to be seeing less cheese, less snowball, less successful Pyke players in the bot lane. I really think there is absolutely no reason to play this champion other than if you find him fun, of course. Vel'Koz. Now, Vel'Koz does benefit from the durability update because he's got built-in... Is Vel'Koz a he? Because they've got built-in true damage. So we're going to be seeing that as a trend. Every champion with true damage is going to be kind of like held on a pedestal this patch. Everybody's talking about how like Vayne is going to be absolutely massive in the top lane and bot lane. I agree. So as an extension of that, champions that are good with Vayne are also going to be stronger by proxy. We'll get to that later. Let's talk about Vel'Koz. I still don't think that Vel'Koz is going to be necessarily super successful in the bot lane, just because he is classified. He does have true damage, but that's only until level 6, and as support, you don't get level 6 until later than everybody. It's just not a super. Well, he's got. It's not a massive amount of true damage, is what I'm saying. It's not enough to like propel him out of tier 3 because he's still a mage, in my eyes, cheese support. Alistar, he's got the, tanky durability update. Honestly, I think that Alistar was one of the champions that didn't really require much more tankiness, and his cooldowns are so long compared to someone like Leona's that being 10% tankier is probably not going to let you get off another combo, for instance. So I don't think that Alistar is going to greatly benefit from this update. Rakan is kind of just like the jack of all trades, master of none. Being slightly tankier is going to be like a little bit of a buff because he does have those enchantery aspects. And spoiler alert, guys, enchanters are super freaking strong on this patch. However, and let's just talk about this now. Enchanters are going to be insanely strong on this patch because, like I said earlier, enchanters by proxy are becoming stronger. Even though they're getting their direct components like healing and shielding nerfed, marksmen are going to be super, super strong. They're going to be incredibly valuable. They're going to be the centerpiece of your team fight. As long as you've got your marksmen alive, they're the role that's supposed to be pumping out consistent damage. If your marksman's alive, you're probably going to win that fight eventually, right? Because there's going to be less one-shots. So things like the Yone and the Zed aren't going to be able to just pop the marksman as if they never existed. So by proxy, if marksmen are strong, enchanters are strong. Rakan is sort of an enchanter. However, I think he's going to suffer the most from the direct heal and shielding nerf, just because he's a master. He's a jack of all trades, master of none, right? Like you don't pick him for his healing and shielding, but like it certainly helps round out your team comp. I just think he's going to remain average, and the champions that are actually dedicated to solely standing by your marksmen and keeping them alive, those are the enchanters that are going to be super, super strong. And Rakan is sort of this like hybrid of like enchantery, sort of engage, sort of peel. The champions that actually enchant and heal, those are going to be the ones that succeed. Gragas is kind of just like in the middle of being like a weird cheese anti-tank bot lane. Don't want to talk too much about these three. These guys are just like, if you want to play a tank in the bot lane and you want to play off meta, that's basically what Gragas, Zac, and Shen are for. Taric is pretty dead outside of the Master Yi interaction, and we haven't seen Master Yi Taric in my games for a long, long time. Thresh another one of those champions that's just kind of like struggling. He's not found like his own specialty or niche in this current meta. I see some people running Glacial on him, but like there's other tank engaged champions that run Glacial better, like Nautilus. I don't really think that like, he's kind of like Pyke. He's not in as bad of a spot as Pyke, but he's kind of like Pyke in that unless you just really, really love Thresh, you're probably not playing him a whole lot right now. Seraphine is probably the weakest of the real enchanters. I think that she's kind of just middle of the road in the support role and does much better in the mid role. However, that is one of the strengths of the champion, is that if you lock it in, you've got a flex pick, and flex picks are incredibly strong and become stronger the higher up the ladder you go. You can first pick Seraphine, and they don't know if it's support or mid. Or ADC, actually. I think in this actual support role, though, she's kind of struggling, and I don't think that this durability change is going to help her do that. The slowing down of the game is going to help her scale, and she scales like a monster, but we've got Sona, who scales even harder, so I hate doing that comparison because they're really not all that similar in terms of playstyle, but why lock Seraphine when you could just lock, Godzilla Sona for this patch? Vex, absolute cheese. I'm actually going to move her all the way down to bottom of tier 3. She's a cheese-reliant champion, and in general, cheese-reliant champions are worse this patch. Ashe. Now, she is sort of cheesy, but she also brings a lot to the table, and marksmen are going to be generally stronger this patch. However, when you're playing her in the support role, you're usually going things like AP Ashe, or maybe Umbral Glaive Ashe. You're not actually building her as a proper marksman. So I'm still relegating her to low tier 3. Super, super fun to play. Lots of utility, lots of slow, hard engage, vision control, all that cool stuff. She's really fun and cool to play as a support, but I don't think she's going to excel in this patch by any means. Now, ADC Ashe with a Sona buffing her, that's the play. But I'm assuming that when you play Ashe support, you're also going to have a second marksman. So I think that's going to be a little less successful this patch. Galio, kind of just like Gragas, he's an anti-tank tank. Braum, don't want to talk about him. He's not going to be super great this patch anyways. Morgana, now, as this tier says, you should only be playing with them if you're skilled or used as counter picks. Morgana's the queen of the counter picks. If they lock in a Blitzcrank, if they lock in a Leona, there's no better champion to lock in than Morgana. Amumu, I think Amumu's support is kind of like back on the rise. I've been watching a little bit of Tyler 1 in Korea, and he's ran into like a decent amount of Amumu support. So I haven't played him, but maybe there's something there. And, you know, he's going to be 10% tankier on this patch. Pantheon, he is 100% a cheese support, but I think he's one of the most successful cheese supports, which is why he's sort of like in mid tier 3 rather than low or tier 4. Teemo, you guys know how I feel about Teemo support. I think he's the most underrated support in the game. Incredibly low economy, incredibly easy to carry with, incredibly fun. However, he is going to be taking a hit this patch because people are tankier and cheese supports are going to be worse. Already talked about Leona. Syndra's a cheese support, going to be slightly worse. Xerath is a mage support that I don't think, like, being 10% tankier on Xerath, I feel like if you just get caught as Xerath, you're just dead no matter what. You don't have, like, shields and heals to give yourself and, like, maybe survive with that sliver of health. You're probably just dead. So I wouldn't be moving Xerath up or down on this patch. I just think he's, like, not going to be super successful. Ornn, support. People really, really want this champion to work as a support, and he works fine. He works fine. He does not excel. He's not going to be god tier this patch. The only buff that Ornn is getting is that games are going to be longer. So as support Ornn, you know, where you're struggling to hit that level 13, 14, 15, 16 patch or part of the game where you get to actually upgrade your team's items, you may get one more this game. You know, you may get one more this patch. I still can't, like, wholeheartedly recommend him or anything. Bard, I think that Bard should probably be left to be discussed by people who are really, really good at Bard and who play a lot of Bard and who know all the, you know, top tier meta picks. That's not me. I don't do a lot of that. So maybe check out like Fevi Knight or Lathyrus, the Bard players, and see what they think about Bard on this patch. I'm placing him in tier 3. I think he's going to be absolutely okay, but he's not going to like dominate the meta or anything. We got Tahm Kench. Now, Tahm Kench should really only be played in a Senna lane, whether the Senna is your ADC or Tahm Kench is your ADC, aka Starving Senna. Don't really care which one. It's an absolutely unbreakable, unbeatable lane. Whether you're on comms, you know, in Clash, on the tournament, in solo queue, it's unbeatable. There's no counterplay. Neeko, pretty much just like a cheesier, worse version of Lux support, who is, as you can see, also in tier 3, not very good. Veigar, other than the fact that like his cage is one of the best basic abilities in the game, doesn't really excel in the support lane. It's kind of awkward to stack with him, and that's the entire purpose of the champion. Swain, really, really fun, and I do think he got a slight buff just through this rework. You know, they called it a rework, but it was kind of just like a buff to all roles, in my opinion. He's just a better champion, but I think he's seeing more success in the mid role or even in the ADC role. Maokai, I moved him down this patch because I think that Maokai as a support, even though he's slightly tanky, when you play Maokai support, he's kind of like a cheese champion. And, you know, we've talked about that, right? All cheese champions are getting knocked down a peg. Rell, I actually moved Rell down as well because I think the tank champions that are going to benefit the most from this durability update have really, really low cooldowns. So Leona, even though she doesn't benefit enough to escape out of tier 3. Leona and Nautilus are going to be pretty good at this patch because in my mind, 10% tankier means you can like absorb 1 or 2 more spells and get off 1 more cooldown. Rell has really, really long cooldowns, and I don't think that getting hit by 1 more ability or 1 more, you know, and surviving is going to mean that she's going to get off like another ulti. She's going to get off another like big W flash, right? Once Rell is in and she started the fight, she's a fantastic flash ult bot. But once she's in, she's pretty much in. She's not like walking around disrupting people like Nautilus or anything like that. And that's kind of an extension of why she hasn't played that much. It feels like she only gets to participate in like 10% of the fight right at the very beginning. But again, I don't think she's going to benefit super much. Lux, already talked about her a little bit. Taliyah, I think she's really, really fun. And I think I have like a bit of a soft spot for her. But she definitely still falls within cheese support, which is going to be worse this patch. And hopefully I've expressed and articulated why I think cheese supports are going to be so bad this patch. Not unplayable levels, but for instance, like let's say you land a full Taliyah combo, and last patch, because they had 70 health less and, 150 health less MR and stuff, last patch, let's say that one-shots them. Let's say your full combo only gets them to 10%, right, this patch, or 5%, 2%, I don't care. The fact that like they have that sliver of health left for a teammate to come in and disrupt your play, or to flash out, or to use heal, or to get healed, that changes everything, guys. Such a small change. That's why I think this is such a genius change, because the difference between someone living with 5% of their HP bar and 0% is so massive. But the people that are going to, see the worst effect of that is definitely cheese supports and Zeds. Assassins. So I think Taliyah, I'd be remiss to put her any higher than tier 3. So guys, let's talk about the champions that are actually good. It's all been leading to this. These are the champions you should actually climb with. And then of course there's one tier above that. So I've been talking all about how mages and cheese supports are bad. Why is Brand in tier 2? Why is Brand in the very good tier? He's got percent health, guys. All of his items, all of his, his passive, all of his skills, they burn people for percentages of their health. So he is going to be shredding tanks, and there's going to be tanks everywhere on this patch. Mostly in the top lane and jungle, I think, but they're going to be everywhere. And I think that Brand is going to be the one champion. Brand and Zyra are kind of like the two mage champions that I think are really going to excel. Zyra is going to excel because she has the toughest part about playing Zyra is walking up and actually like harassing people. Like this champion can be like so choking if you get them under their turret and you're just constantly like shoving plants up their bum and stuff like that. But like you can't do that against Blitzcrank. You can't do that against Pyke. You can't do that against Leona. One, we're going to see less of two of those three champions. And two, now you can. Now I don't think that those champions are going to be able to one-shot you. So you're going to be able to position so much more forward and do what Zyra wants to do so much more frequently. I think that these are the two exception to the rule in terms of like don't play mages. I think these two champions are going to be really, really good. Yuumi, everyone's 10% tankier. That doesn't necessarily matter for Yuumi because if Yuumi gets caught, she's probably going to get popped. Although she's weirdly hard to kill early in the game when she gets detached. Have you guys ever noticed that? Well, now she's 10% harder to kill, but more importantly, the Kayn that she's on is 10% harder to kill, which means that she just gets to ride that boy and pump heals into him even longer. I think Yuumi's going to be really, really cracked. I think Enchantress in general are going to be cracked, which is why Renata is on here. Now, she's kind of a weird champion, and I think she's kind of like, despite having a very, very recent release, I think that she's kind of fallen to the wayside. Competitively, I think she's still incredibly viable, and on a like skill level, I think the higher up the ladder you go, the more useful she is, because she's one of those champions that kind of like, you need your teammates to know how to play with a Renata. Because what she does is not always super obvious. Like when you hold on to your W, your ADC needs to know I can play aggressively because my Renata still has W. Whereas like in the lower elos, your ADC is just not going to think about that at all. There's going to be no thoughts, head empty, right? But anyways, Enchanter's super, super strong. Karma is already excelling, so a 10% buff to her durability is going to help her out. Again, obviously, her Moonstone is nerfed, her shielding is nerfed, her W is nerfed. It doesn't matter. As long as Karma's in the fight, she's going to be pumping out those mid to late game team fight shields. It's going to be really, really hard to kill her. Yeah, it's going to be really hard to kill her team, too. Nautilus, I do think if you're going to be playing engage support tanks, Nautilus is the way to go. He is, as long as you're landing your hooks, you've got your Q on a pretty low cooldown. He's already kind of tanky. He can go Aftershock and Glacial, which is really, really important in terms of like, versatility. I think that Nautilus is the best tank support in the game, with one exception, and we'll talk about that in tier 1. Zilean is getting absolutely slept on already, and I think this patch is going to make him even stronger, because the worst part about Zilean is trying to get through those first couple of levels where it feels like you're made of paper. Well, you're not made of paper anymore, guys. You're made of sandpaper. You're still gonna die if you get caught once or twice, but I think that it'll be much easier to scale with this champion. And that's kind of like a blanket statement for all champs. I think that in general, late game champions are going to be much better. These games are going to be harder to close out. They're going to be harder to snowball. the game's slowing down. So late game champions are going to be pretty cracked. Janna, I think that a lot of people would disagree with this one. I think that Janna's kind of had like an identity crisis ever since her little rework, but I still see a lot of Janna succeeding. I still find success with the champion when I play her. Obviously, you lock Glacial. You know, she's of course going to suffer from the shielding and healing nerf, but you know, the fact that she's 10% tankier, I think, is going to be helpful. And she's another one of those champions that has like really, really low cooldowns. So greatly benefit from the durability update. I think that she's high tier too. Here it is, guys. These champions are the best of the best in the current meta and should 100% be played if you want to climb. Enchanter City, obviously. I'll speak a little bit about each one, but basically, you see what's strong. Late game, squishy champions that empower their marksmen. That's it, guys. Soraka is already pretty tough to duel in lating phase because if you land your Q, you can pretty much outtrade anyone. Nami is going to be greatly I think her win rate's probably going to go up like 2 or 3% this patch. She's already kind of like sort of a jack of all trades when it comes to enchanters. Like she can trade, she can heal, she can shield. She pairs really, really well with Lucian. So if your ADC locks in Lucian, make sure you're going Electrocute because you can literally just like proc Electrocute from a mile away. Lulu is the queen of just standing next to your marksman and dumping all of your abilities on him, right? Lulu is going to be absolutely broken this patch because you won't be able to kill her. And then Sona, these next two are kind of answers to the rest of the meta, which I do think is going to be absolutely Enchanter dominated. I've always said that Sona is the anti-Enchanter enchanter. If the enemy team locks in an Enchanter, you should lock in Sona because you get to scale for free. Like, and nobody scales harder on paper than Sona. Now, there are champions who have better kits for late game, like, you know, hook champions and stuff like that. You know, Nami, I think, does a little bit better in team fights, but in terms of raw team fights and numbers, nobody scales harder than Sona. Nobody pumps out as much heals. Nobody pumps out as much shielding, movement speed, poke. She gives her team stats. Nobody pumps out harder late game numbers than Sona. And there's going to be a lot of matchups right now where Sona just gets to scale for free. And on the flip side of that, if you don't want to let the enemy scale for free, if the enemy does lock in a Sona or a Soraka or maybe even a Yuumi Lulu, you can go Blitzcrank. He's the anti-enchanter tank. So operating purely as a frontline, not going to be as efficient as Nautilus, but he's the anti-enchanter champion, right? You land one hook throughout the whole game, and if it's in late game, you probably win off that. But yeah, I definitely think that like front to back team fighting is going to last longer, but pick champions like Blitzcrank. If you literally hook the Sona into your entire team, regardless of the durability update, she's still going to die, right? So for the same reason that these two are strong, Senna is going to be absolutely nutty this patch. With one exception, we're not going to be going full lethality. We're not going to be going a crit build. We are going to be going a build that I found recently. It's Umbral into Locket. Because everyone's going to be locking in these champions and because you're 10% tankier, you're going to be able to walk up and grab souls and scale for free, right? However, I don't think that full lethality is probably the way to go anymore. I think we're probably going to be pivoting into Umbral to control vision and then Locket just to, you know, stay alive longer. So yeah, that is my best estimate of what the meta is going to be like on patch 12.10. I'm really, really excited about this patch. I think it's the best change that they've made to the game in a really, really long time. And I can't wait to see what you guys think about it. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. If you have any questions at all, put them down in the YouTube comments. I do respond to them, and I'm going to take special care to respond to as many of these comments as I can because I know this is a big patch and a lot of people have questions. So there it is, guys, the durability update tier list from the greatest support alive. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Take it easy. Peace.